In case you don't know, I am Pastor Steve, pastor and founder of R120 Ministries, and I am glad you could join me this morning. In fact, I'm really glad because it's good to see that people are watching live because it's letting me know that I am not alone. And right now, in the middle of the COVID-19 crisis, as most of us are isolating ourselves so that we don't catch the virus or worse, help spread the virus to others, it's easy to feel alone in our isolation. I might be wrong, but based on what I'm reading on social media and in the middle of this COVID-19 isolation, people are feeling alone. Maybe not alone physically because they have family with them in their house, but they seem to be alone emotionally. Now, maybe it's because studies show that social media is not a good substitute for personal human interaction emotionally. And maybe it's because, we are isolated. And even, as I said, with our family in our house, they're with us. We may still feel that we are alone emotionally. I think it's because deep down we feel alone because of what we are feeling. And not just the fear and the anxiety, but the many other feelings that are surfacing and abundant during this pandemic crisis. Feelings of frustration, disappointment, weariness, and sorrow, or actually grief, a sense of loss. How many of these feelings have you been experiencing, are experiencing during this pandemic? Are you experiencing them daily? Hourly? Maybe you're just sort of running through a cycle that just seems to go every day, like every hour, you're just running through these emotions. You are not alone. Because many of us are or will experience these emotions at some point. Now, just because I said you are not alone, I know right now that probably doesn't alleviate the feeling of loneliness, and you may not be convinced. Maybe even in your faith, you are still feeling alone. Perhaps you are praying to God and talking to Him regularly. You may even see God working in your life through the cloud of fear and anxiety, as I talked about last week. You may even feel His presence in your life. And yet, you may still feel alone. Why is that? Why do we feel this way? Why, even in our faith, do we still feel alone? Well, I think it's because we know as humans, we may have the same emotions, share the same feelings, but we cannot experience those emotions the same way. Due to our individual life experience, our spiritual gifts, our personalities, all these things that make us who we are, that make us unique, they also separate us from truly knowing what someone else is going through. And we may feel the same emotion, yet we are experiencing them in our own way, at different times, due to different triggers, our own unique way. So while we are not alone in what we feel, we are alone in how we feel it. In other words, we may relate to the emotions that each other have. I mean, I have the same emotion or have had it. Yet I do not understand how you are feeling the emotion because I do not know what is truly going on in your head and in your heart. I don't know how you are processing the emotion because you process the emotion differently than me. Human empathy only gets us so far. Now hang on, because there is good news coming. But the bad news first is that we equate our human empathy to God's empathy and understanding. We think no one really knows what I'm going through, then I am truly alone. No one gets it. And as we start to think that, we start to think that God doesn't get it. And if he doesn't get it, we may even start to think he doesn't care. I mean, he doesn't get it. I'm so insignificant for him to even care about because he doesn't get it and he isn't concerned with me. And after all, he's got bigger worries and concerns. So hello, loneliness. Well, the good news, and there is really good news, God does understand with an empathy we can never have or understand. And he most certainly cares about you. Nothing is insignificant to him, especially you. Let's deal with the easy thing first, is that God cares about you. You are significant to him. How significant, you may ask? Well, it's pretty easy to answer the week before Easter. John 3:16. For this is how God loved the world. He gave his one and only Son so that everyone who believes in him will not perish but have eternal life. Everyone. Christ died for everyone. That includes you. We'll talk about this more next week on Easter. Still not convinced? Hebrews 4:13. Nothing in all creation is hidden from God. Everything is naked and exposed before his eyes. We are not hidden from God. He sees everything because everything is significant to God, which includes you. You are significant and he cares. Let's talk about the other part that we discussed earlier. The problem with allowing our human nature to prevail, causing us to equate God's understanding to our understanding, including empathy. If others can't understand where I am emotionally, does God? And if he can, I'm truly alone. Well, again, you are not alone, for he does fully understand what you are going through emotionally. We just read, nothing is hidden, and everything is fully exposed before him. Everything. This means God knows what is in your heart and in your mind. He knows exactly what you are thinking and what you are feeling. Matthew 9, verses 3 through 4. But some of the teachers of the religious law said to themselves, and they're thinking this, saying to themselves, that's blasphemy. Does he think he's God? They're talking about Jesus right there while Jesus is talking. He goes on and says, Jesus knew what they were thinking, so he asked them, why do you have such evil thoughts in your hearts? He didn't say it out loud. They were thinking it, but Jesus knew what they were thinking and what they felt within their hearts. Proverbs 21:2. People may be right in their own eyes, but the Lord examines their heart. Jeremiah 17:10. But I, the Lord, search all hearts and examine secret motives. God knows your hearts and your minds. He knows them. He knows exactly what we are feeling and how we are experiencing it, mentally and emotionally. Now that is so cool because that is pretty important for true empathy. to be in the heart and the mind of the person that you want to empathize with. We can't do that. We can guess by the way they're talking and their physical body motion and how they handle themselves physically, but or God knows. But does he have the second part of empathy? God would have to experience being human to truly understand and empathize. Does he have the experience of human emotions himself? Oh, I think he does. Wait, Jesus. Jesus was fully God and human. So yes, he does know what the human experience is all about. Now, if you read the Bible, you can find many verses and read how Jesus experienced and felt human emotions. Feelings like frustration and disappointment, weariness, bone-tired weariness, sorrow, loneliness, fear, anxiety. There are many accounts of Jesus experiencing all of these emotions, yet there is one moment where Jesus is experiencing them all at once. Maybe like you are right now, dealing with all these emotions and feeling them as we deal with COVID-19. That moment is captured in the account written by Matthew in chapter 26, verses 36 through 44. Then Jesus went with them. Now this is the Holy Thursday, right after the Last Supper. He's going to the garden to pray after he's had all his discussions with his disciples. This is the night before his crucifixion. Then Jesus went with them to the olive grove called Gethsemane. And he said, "Sit here while I go over there to pray." He took Peter and Zebedee's two sons, James and John, and he became anguished and distressed. Anguished and distressed. He told them, "My soul is crushed with grief to the point of death." That's some huge sorrow. Enormous emotion. He goes on and says, "Stay here and keep watch with me." He went on a little farther and bowed down his face to the ground, praying, "My Father, if it is possible, let this cup of suffering be taken away from me. Yet I want your will to be done, not mine." He's praying. He's got fear and anxiety over what's coming. He knows what's coming. The suffering, the crucifixion, the death, and the weighing of all the sins of the world on him. He's asking, if there's another way, let's do it, because I am afraid. Well, after he gets done praying, it goes on and says, "Then he returned to the disciples and found them asleep." That's pretty nice. You just confess to your friends that I have a lot of sorrow. I am so grieved and sad that it's to the point of death. Could you stay here and support me? And they're asleep. Jesus, he goes on and he said to Peter, "Couldn't you watch with me even 1 hour?" Talk about being frustrated, disappointed, alone. So he says to them again, "Keep watch and pray so that you will not give in to temptation. For the spirit is willing, but the body is weak." Then Jesus left them a second time and prayed, "My Father, if this cup cannot be taken away unless I drink it, your will be done." Again, he is saying, I am afraid, please help me if there's another way. When he returned to them again, he found them sleeping, for they couldn't keep their eyes open. Talk about discouragement. So he left them again for a third time to pray, saying the same things. Jesus experienced anguish, distress, grief or sorrow, loneliness, frustration. You gotta know he's weary in this. He's praying his heart out. The stress alone is wearing him down, for he is filled with anxiety and fear. And he's experiencing these all together, all at once, at a level that we could never, ever understand. He is so stressed that the account recorded by Luke states Jesus prayed more fervently, and he was in such agony of spirit that his sweat fell to the ground like great drops of blood. Have you ever been under that amount of stress? That amount of anxiety, fear, sorrow, that when you prayed, your sweat felt like great drops of blood? Do you think Jesus, God, knows human emotions? Do you think Jesus, God, might understand what you are going through right now? I would say he does. Because of this, God has true and perfect empathy. Not only has God gone through the emotions we feel, he also knows exactly how you are personally experiencing the emotion, for he knows your heart and your mind. He knows you like no other person can or is able to. He also cares for you more than any other person ever will. God doesn't just have perfect empathy. God is the embodiment of perfect empathy. And that is so cool. For me, that is so comforting. I hope it is for you. And I hope you know, you are not alone as you go through this COVID-19 crisis. You are never alone, for God is with you. And I hope that you are starting to feel that you are not alone, that all the feelings you are experiencing, God fully understands, that he has experienced them and truly knows what you're going through. God is not only there for you, he's supporting you. In our moments of turmoil, God may not reveal or relieve or remove the turmoil, but he sends us help to strengthen us. Sometimes it may be spiritually, the spiritual help as he did with his son. When Jesus prayed that night in the garden before being crucified, it's recorded in Luke 22, he walked away about a stone's throw and knelt down and prayed, "Father, if you are willing, please take this cup of suffering away from me. Yet I want your will to be done, not mine." God the Father sensing the anguish of his Son, then sent him support. It's recorded, then an angel from heaven appeared and strengthened Jesus. We get that sometimes, that spiritual uplifting feeling, that strengthening from God. Sometimes, he doesn't send it spiritually. Sometimes he sends it as a fellow Christian to support and let you know you are not alone. There's a really great example of it in 2 Corinthians chapter 7. This is Paul. He's writing this down, and he's been traveling around, and he's not been feeling really good about things. So he wrote, "For when we came into Macedonia, we had no rest." They're tired. "But we were harassed at every turn. Conflicts on the outside, fears within." They're experiencing everything. They're tired. They're being harassed. They're discouraged. And all of this, not only on the outside, is causing fears and anxiety within. He goes on to write, "But God, who comforts the downcast, comforted us by the coming of Titus. And not only by his coming, but also by the comfort you have given him. He told us about your longing for me, your deep sorrow, your ardent concern for me, so that my joy was greater than ever." Paul, in his despair, his moment of conflict and fear and anxiety and frustration, God, who comforts those who are downcast, comforts the depressed, the despair, the dejected. He sent comfort to Paul by sending Titus. Titus, a companion of Paul, who not only comforted Paul by just being there himself, but brought news. Titus brought news of others who were concerned and supporting and wishing Paul well. How many times in your despair has a text, an email, a message, a phone call, maybe even the old-fashioned snail mail card or gift shown up when you needed it in your moment of discouragement, despair? And when you ask the person, "Well, why'd you send that?" The person says, "You were just on my heart. I don't know about you, but I don't believe in coincidences. I believe in God. And God sends comfort because he understands and has empathy and cares for you, because you are not alone." Now, we may not be perfect in our empathy, but we can be very good in our support and in our comfort to each other, even if it's to say, "I am feeling that too," and to remind you that you are not alone. Now, before I close, I just want to add that I am looking to start an online video conferencing Bible study so that we can come together for support, for comfort, and remind one another that we are in this together with God by our side, and we are not alone. Now, the details will be coming. It looks like Wednesday evenings. Right now, the specific topic is not determined. But if you are interested in joining the study when it starts, just instant message me. I will be posting more about this week. Just a hint. If you are feeling alone, this might be God sending you people into your life to remind you that you are not ever alone. I pray you will feel God with you and that God will keep you and protect you. May God bless you. May he keep you. God bless. Be well. And we'll see you later this week.